we were destroyed.
What were you doing that close to American forces?
Prigozhin wanted to seize this factory.
There's this factory that Murat is talking about called Conoco, which is sort of the crown jewel of all the assets. It's valued in the hundreds of millions of dollars. It was at one of ISIS's most valuable assets for fuel smuggling.
You knew that U.S. Special Operations were in the factory.
Utkin, he comes in and he says, we're gonna take this from the Americans.
His ego
His ego.
rose above the common sense.
Russian military had denied 3 different times that it was Russians on the ground.
Americans would want to avoid any direct confrontation. World War III.
Sounds like there was around 500 Wagner Group soldiers on the ground. There were 40 U.S. Special Forces guys along with...
Prigozhin decided that American were not involved.
Let's talk about the Battle of Khasham between Wagner and U.S. Special Forces. So, like I'd mentioned, I have friends that were in that battle. It sounds like there was around 500 Wagner Group soldiers on the ground. There were 40 U.S. Special Forces guys along with a couple with a Kurdish partner force. And so, let's just start with the beginning. What were you doing that close to American forces?
From the very beginning. This factory was very important. This factory enclosed all infrastructure of the oil field nearby, nearby Conoco. And Prigozhin wanted to seize this factory during the battle for the Deir Zor. But we have no enough resources. We constantly we forced to attract our forces in order to achieve a goal, in order to liberate Deir Zor. Our allies was very undecisively acted, very undecisively, and we cannot using our forces in order to advance forward.
There's this factory that Murat is talking about called Conoco, which is sort of the crown jewel of all the assets. It's valued in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And it was at one of ISIS's most valuable assets for fuel smuggling.
The most rich, most profitable oil field in Syria.
How many guys did you have gathered to attack Conoco at that time?
I think about 502 units, Karpaty and 5th assault units, and my group that consists of Syrian fighters, 75. I had to advance on the left flank and take over 2 strongholds. We advanced on the start line of attack, but American prevented us. They struck on the second echelon, headquarter, artillery position, склады вооружения,
the armory.
Armory, and then they shift the fire on us.
So U.S. Special Operations initiated the attack.
No, no, no. What you should tell them is start from the beginning of the morning, because this happened on February 8th, right?
February, the night. The
night of February.
Between 7 and
Between 7th and
8 February.
And you were in the room the day before or a couple of days before, where Utkin, he comes in and he says, "We're gonna take this from the Americans."
Yeah.
And someone said, "Are the Americans going to be there?" And he said, "Yeah."
Yes, I don't know why, but Prigozhin decided that American weren't involved. His ego rose above the common sense.
You knew that U.S. Special Operations were in the factory.
Yes, we know about it.
Were you worried?
We knew about it. Don't worry. Our chief, our commander, told us that American wanted involved.
They create this kind of line of deconfliction between U.S.-backed forces in Syria and Russian-backed forces. And the line is pretty much the Euphrates River, which is right here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's established. And so, but the issue for Prigozhin is that the most profitable oil fields are right across on the other side of the deconfliction line. And so Murat and Wagner, what they're doing prior to this is they're building up their forces. They're testing a little bit the line of deconfliction, probably. Because they cross the river and there's this one little spot that is still Russian territory. And so the Americans are watching this on the drones, and they're seeing the buildup. They see it all day, and eventually, in the evening, they start calling the Russians over the deconfliction line that they have between the U.S. and Russian militaries, and they say, "Are these your guys?" And the Russian military says, "No."
No.
Why did the Russian Ministry of Defense deny that it was Russians who were attacking? And there is an argument, I think, to be made. Like Prigozhin, his gamble in trying to take Konoco was that when the Americans saw that it was Russians coming, the Americans would want to avoid any direct confrontation, World War III, and they would back away and retreat along with the Kurds. And he was incredibly mistaken in that calculation. And what I think he wasn't counting on, and what Murat is saying, is that when the Americans were calling into the Ministry of Defense, you have some poor guy on the line who is also not going to be responsible for World War III. And so the quickest thing that you're going to do is not say, yeah, those are my guys attacking U.S. soldiers. You're going to say, don't know anything about it, don't know what you're talking about, and try to go to your higher-ups to cover your own butt. And so ultimately Prigozhin probably had kind of a wink and a nod from the Ministry of Defense that he was going to try to do this. And if it worked out, it's a great Russian victory for everybody. Assad, the Russians, Prigozhin. And if it doesn't, in the Ministry of Defense's mind, it's just Wagner guys who are getting killed.
If they didn't kill everybody, what stopped it?
So eventually in the morning, the Ministry of Defense got in touch with the Americans, and it was agreed, the Americans agreed to a 2-hour pause so that the Russians could collect weapons and dead.
The thing is, this it has already happened.
Yeah, there's no denying it anymore.
We were destroyed
Yeah.
The whole field was covered with corpses.
How does that make you feel now, knowing that the Russian military had denied 3 different times that it was Russians on the ground, and then also told the Russian people that there were no Russians that were killed in that battle?
Firstly, I think the American acted as it according to the situation. If I were on their place, I will do the same action. It's a rules of war. If you under attack, you must to protect themselves and wage and counterattack. Secondly, I think it was bad thing from the side of our chief. It was the Prigozhin and Wagner was absolutely wrong in this situation.
I think probably every American that fought that day is going to watch this. Do you have anything personally to say to them?
What can I say them? They, as I already said, they acted as according to the rule of war.
No matter where you're watching Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.